Welcome, viewers and listeners, to the Health Revolution, the program that shows you how to have a life of vibrant well-being. In a world full of noisy health trends, we bring you clarity. In a sea of fads, we reveal the science-backed strategies that truly work. We explore physical strength, emotional resilience, and mental mastery. These are the keys to an enriched life. Join us for inspiring interviews with champions who conquered life's health challenges, fueling your journey. Are you ready to unlock your potential? To live with vitality and purpose? Then join the Health Revolution. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, health and fitness expert, speaker, and a mom who understands. Let's embark on this transformative quest. Together, we're about to change the game, starting now. The information provided in this show is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. Viewers should use their own discretion and consult with a healthcare professional for personalized guidance and recommendations. Welcome, everybody, to the Health Revolution. We're excited that you are joining us today. I'm your host, Adriana Morrison, and we are all things the physical strength, the emotional resilience, and the mental mastery that encompasses the umbrella of our health and wellness. And I'm excited about today's episode. Of course, do not forget that attached to the little tab at the bottom of your screen are show notes that are referencing some important information from today's episode. We're delving into the importance of understanding how our diet culture has impacted us, and exploring the impact that eating disorders have had and what we can learn in terms of growing from that point and onward. And today's guest is someone who I'm excited to introduce you to. First, please watch this video. Let's check her out. Meet Marcella Raimondo, a dedicated advocate for social justice and eating disorder awareness. With a heart full of passion, Marcella has been addressing the intersection of body image and media since 1995. Marcella's journey includes pivotal roles at About Face and the Association for Size, Health, and Diversity, where she championed media literacy and diversity in eating disorder treatment. She's currently a guiding force on the advisory boards for Arise and Eating Disorder Recovery Support. With a BA from UC Berkeley and an MPH from the University of Michigan, Marcella pursued her doctorate in clinical psychology to deepen her impact. Now a licensed clinical psychologist, she brings her expertise to Kaiser Permanente's eating disorder clinic and her private practice. Marcella's personal triumph over anorexia nervosa fuels her commitment to holistic health and body nurturance. Dr. Marcella, welcome to the show. How are you?
I am great. Wow. I was like watching that intro of me. I'm like, oh, you really did something really magical with me. I love it. And so
this is your life.
Yeah. So. Like, okay. So I was like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, it's very impressive. And I love the two areas that you delve into, the social injustice and the eating disorders. And I'm fascinated about the interconnection between the two. Can you take us back into those points along the way where it really stood out for you to begin to continue to focus on this and have your work culminate from this point?
Absolutely. I'll start with myself and my own lived experience with anorexia nervosa. I remember like being a teen, being in my early 20s, and just really struggling with my relationship with myself. And and in my body, but yet how that intersected just with my culture. My mother immigrated here from Peru, and she took on acculturation as and took on learning English, and just like her discomfort of learning the language, speaking English with an accent, and just what it meant to be successful in this Western society was by being thin. And she held that for me, and not in a way of where she didn't find me beautiful and lovable, but more in a way of, I'm scared, and I'm scared that you're not going to be successful in this culture, successful as in being included, getting married, and just being able to pursue what you want. And so for her, it's just, you must remain thin and be thin. And that is really important. What was hard about that message, I mean, that message is hard in and of itself, is that then I'm growing up in a culture, and many cultures love food. Many cultures celebrate food. Many cultures find it that if you don't eat the food, you are showing disrespect to the culture. I mean, how many of us can say, like, yeah, if I don't eat that, my mom, my aunt, my grandmother, it's not going to be a good situation. And so growing up with that was also very conflicting. And then my body was changing. Bodies change when we go through puberty. And so it's like, you're getting bigger. You're not, your body's changing. You're getting bigger. This is not a good thing. And you need to eat all the food.
And this is fascinating, because one thing I didn't realize before today is that, so your family's from South America, so is mine. Mine is from Venezuela, and so I'm first generation born here. And as you're talking about the timeline in which the impact your mom made, my mother went through the same thing, that the pressures to assimilate and be successful, and the levels of stress that came with that, of just wanting to succeed. I think that I felt that growing up as well. Did you feel, was stress management, was that something, and I'm curious, if you find that this was something that was an unspoken area for your family, the handling stress, the continuing to press on with dreams and all of that. I'm digging deeper here with some of the source of where this came from for you.
Absolutely. In that, like, well, my mother immigrated here from Peru. My father is first generation Italian. And so you can see, like, food, 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 food. And yet there is this what feels like cultural, but also feels like Catholicism, because both are intersected so much with Catholicism. Is like you put your head down and you move forward. And it was like, we don't talk about our feelings. We don't talk about any mental health struggles. And so when I began to lose a lot of weight, and it was very clear I had an eating disorder, I mean, it was absolutely clear, like they didn't know what to do. And so there was this, like, we don't know what to do. And then came a lot of focus on, like, stop doing this. And not so much as tell me what's happening for you, but just more of like, stop doing this. And not out of cruelty. It's just, that's what they knew. And so there is a lot of, like, move forward with school, move forward with getting a job, and then move forward with getting married. And like those kinds of pressures. And so I can imagine how it must feel for them, even on some level, for me to have the life that I do. That is, it's like so wild and so different than they ever imagined for me.
And you bring up a good thing. I want to dive back a little bit, just because if we do the math and go backwards, there was a lot of moving pieces in society. Just, society was changing. All of each decade had its own share of news related things that were happening. And so, and I would imagine that your family probably had that sense of urgency when you said, stop, that don't do that, stop that. So not so much being cruel, but just that there was that level of, this can't continue.
Right.
Oh, oh my goodness type of approach.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that you had to somehow seek support, that even if it wasn't necessarily in front of you, that you were on this quest to help heal yourself? What were the turning points for you as you were addressing what you were experiencing?
Uh, I um I was getting to a point where I realized, as much as I'm hanging on to my eating disorder, it was destroying my life. I was starting to get scared about I could die from this. I was noticing like I can't really function. Like it's hard for me to be present in my life, meaning it's hard for me to be present with others. It's hard to be around someone with an eating disorder because as food is this kind of primal energy, and when you're with someone who is not eating, it's uncomfortable. So I had friends take vacations from me, not out of any cruelty, but out of like, this is hard. I was struggling in school. I was struggling with even part-time jobs, and I so those were huge wake-up calls for me, as well as this is miserable. This is absolutely miserable. Like I was afraid to do everything. I was afraid to travel anywhere because it meant like I have to deviate from my food and my exercise routine. I'm like, I no. And so I missed out on a lot of life because of my eating disorder. So I did get to a point of I can't do this anymore.
Were there some surprising elements to your journey in college that just were either beneficial or just surprisingly didn't help? Because in college, it is meant to be that progressive thinking, the really challenge beliefs and boundaries, theories, and all that, whether it's in the studies or just in our environment. Were there things that surprised you within that environment that were helpful or not helpful?
I think for me, what I noticed was just how how un how unpresent I was. I wasn't even able to engage. I mean, from my undergrad, I went to UC Berkeley, which is, I mean, very radical and very progressive, but also like a stimulating environment. College environments are stimulating, and a place like Berkeley where there's a lot of, we'll say, a lot of very strong, opinionated feelings on campus. I was just distant from that. I mean, I didn't have opinions about things, because my world was literally this big with I couldn't think anything more of like, what am I going to eat today? What am I not going to eat today? What am I going to exercise today? I have to remain thin. When am I going to weigh myself again? I mean, like the world and life was passing in front of me. I wasn't dating, so I wasn't meeting people. I wasn't exploring just my sexuality. Like, who do I like? Who do I not like? And so I think looking back, it was such a reminder of like of how not I keep saying not present, but like just a sense of emptiness for me, but like a sense of like loneliness for me. Like I was in the world and surrounded by people, and surrounding myself by people. Like I was more than my eating disorder. I did have interests. I did want to do things that were important to me and were valuable to me, but I couldn't engage in the way that I wanted to.
Would you say that in college was there a proactive attempt to just surround yourself with the things that were supposed to help you grow, and that eventually you're going to fall into place per se, or that you'll pull out of this chapter where things just feel so flatlined? Did you feel like you were trying to expose yourself to different elements to pull you out of that?
I think in a way I had an inner spirit. I do believe, as you know, as a psychologist, that there's a light in everyone, and sometimes it's hidden, sometimes it's buried, but that I do believe there was a light and there was something in me. I know this sounds very like, and you know, hallelujah and all, but you know, something that for me wanted to grow, that wanted to connect, that wanted harmony, that didn't want to be in the throes of an eating disorder that is just relentless, and just miserable. And also, we talk, you know, about like right now about how devastating and how hard eating disorders are, but I also want to emphasize as much as like I was scared I could have died. I did know that, and seeing how my body was shutting down, or the lack of energy, or my um, just like being lightheaded. It was it wasn't like, well, I'm just going to continue. It was also like there are some medical signs here that are really scary, really, really scary.
Wow. And when was the turning point for you? Was it after college, or was there a point in college where you took a different turn and things began to change?
It was after college. I was really, again, continuing with the struggling, continuing with, you know, having trouble with connections and all. I wanted to pursue public health, and I got accepted into a master's program, and I was elated. And I was also had a really hard look at myself of, you're going to fail out of this program if you don't do something about your eating disorder.
And
And so that was the incentive of like, you need to address this.
so there came a point where the value of finishing the program became the top priority.
Or the value of even starting the program. I was in Berkeley and I got accepted to the University of Michigan, and I was going to go. It was 1993 and I was going to go in 1994. And I knew, like, if you don't start to address this, you are not going to succeed in this program.
So then your graduate degree, or your graduate studies and beyond,
Yes.
you started to focus what where then where then became the integration between with what you're studying and, say, your life experiences. How did that come to integrate when you were in graduate school and beyond?
What started to happen was you know, I went to grad school. I was studying public health. It was a 2-year program. I was doing individual treatment for eating disorders. I was devoting a lot of my public health degree, like you had to write papers and do projects, and so I was devoting them all to eating disorders because I was so passionate about it as well, even though I was in the throes of recovery. And then one day, I had a colleague say, "Wow, this is a really powerful book." And she gave it to me, like, I am, because she knew I was a woman of color, and the book was a testimony of all women of color and queer women who struggled with an eating disorder. And it was A Hunger So Wide and So Deep by Becky Thompson. And she thought, you might like this book. And that book blew my mind. It blew my mind of that, what I shared about the culture and the food, and you must eat the food but not gain weight, the really struggles around just the lineage of racism, and the struggles with assimilation, and how people made up for assimilation by adopting a very strong, relentless thinness paradigm. I was 24 and that book just blew my mind. Every single testimonial I read was like, I could have written that. And then I didn't realize then, but I realize now, like, representation matters so, so, so much. And when you don't see your story portrayed, um, how how invalidating it is, how isolating it is, how it even feels like your suffering doesn't matter. It doesn't get, there are ways that it's not recognized. It's even ways where folks feel like, well, then my eating disorder isn't real then. And so then you don't seek treatment. And so that was, to have that book, was also very life changing for me.
I cannot wait for us to continue on. We're going to take a quick commercial break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Hey there, wellness enthusiasts. Welcome back to Fit Bites with Adriana. Today, let's shed some light on a topic that is often misunderstood, adrenal fatigue. Now, adrenal fatigue occurs when your adrenal glands, which are responsible for managing stress, become overwhelmed. Now, this can lead to symptoms like exhaustion, brain fog, and a weakened immune system. So, how can you support your adrenal health? Well, first, prioritize sleep. Aim for 7 to 9 hours of quality rest each night to give your body a chance to recover. Next, manage stress. Incorporate relaxation techniques like meditation, deep breathing, or gentle yoga into your daily routine. Lastly, don't forget about nutrition. A balanced diet with plenty of whole foods, especially those rich in vitamin C and B vitamins, can support adrenal function. Stay hydrated. Drinking enough water is crucial for overall health and can help your body manage stress more effectively. And lastly, listen to your body. If you're feeling run down, it's okay to take a step back and rest. Your health is your wealth. So by taking these steps, you can support your adrenal health and combat fatigue. Stay tuned for more Fit Bites, and here's to feeling energized and vibrant.
Welcome to E360 TV, the live streaming and on-demand destination for influential voices and enlightened audiences. We offer trending, grassroots, and purpose-driven content across a diverse range of interests. E360 TV is more than just watching programs. We offer the ability to interact with live shows connecting audiences to real, authentic influencers and storytellers while streaming to millions of devices. Real experiences. Raw conversations. One destination for it all. E360 TV.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today, Dr. Marcella Raimondo. She is a licensed clinical psychologist. She is an expert in addressing eating disorders and integrating that with her studies in social injustices. And Dr. Marcella, before the break, you were talking about your particular journey, obviously from Berkeley, going to University of Michigan, studying and really diving into eating disorders. What was the breakthrough moment professionally for you as you were continuing to pave your way to become, to hold the credentials that you hold today?
Well, after I got my master's, I just began to do community work, public health work, and I got very interested in social justice in terms of like, I remember using more phrases like around diversity and what does diversity mean, and thinking back about those conversations I had in my early 30s, and mostly centering around representation. And we've kind of looking back on, wow, we learned a lot from that, and like myself and how I grew. And And then when I went to pursue my doctorate, because I wanted to continue to do work in eating disorders and be a psychologist, I somehow I had this like social justice and eating disorders are just two separate things. And then it wasn't until I started to read more and more studies about how we have this myth of who gets an eating disorder and how erroneous it is. And that there are many studies that point out that that marginalized communities get eating disorders. We're just not studying them. We're not collecting this data. We're not looking to understand how an eating disorder impacts marginalized communities. And I remember like doing a paper once, and then just like pursuing article after article about just numerous about prevalence data in so many other communities who have eating disorders, and how their symptomatology is different, and how it was like and then every time I would read something, it was like, oh, more. And then discovering like everything I know about eating disorders almost has to be unlearned, because we are talking about food and the body. Those are two things that run very deep. And just we've kept having this notion of eating disorders as being in thin, affluent, Caucasian girls and young women. It was also this like kind of like degree of vanity, this like control, perfectionism. And so a lot of folks couldn't relate to that. I actually find that kind of stereotype also just kind of one-dimensional, and actually a little judgy to say that someone with an eating disorder is just a vain control freak. I was like, ouch, that really kind of, diminishes someone's pain, and that, having an eating disorder isn't about vanity and control. There's a lot of deeper things with an eating disorder. And if it is about vanity and control, then we need to look at our diet culture and say, like, what are we doing to create that? So those were when like things like my head just felt like it was expanding, and what I thought was like eating disorder was just like not it, in terms of like I held on to the myth and the stereotype and that kind of one-dimensional thinking. And so like my years in grad school getting my PhD was just like, oh. And even now I continue to unlearn over and over again.
And I'm sure that the studies, it tends to evolve as we're moving through life, of course. And you brought up a topic that I'd love for us to unpack. You started to talk and address a little bit of the diet culture. Can you break down diet culture for us, and what are some things that we truly need to look at and to understand, and how it impacts us?
Right. Diet culture is manipulative. Diet culture is cruel, because diet culture attacks some of our essential human needs. Like as human beings, we want optimal health. Of course we do. Of course we do. As human beings, we want to eat foods that nourish us and that fuel our bodies and do good things for our bodies and taste good. We want to eat food in community together. We want movement and activity that is fun, that is good for our bodies, meaning like there are so many benefits to movement and to physical activity. And so we want those things. We want community connection. Diet culture, I feel, knows that, because diet culture is in cahoots with capitalism. And so we are like pursuing thinness because of all these human needs that we want. So diet culture is mean that way. Diet culture says thinness matters no matter what. And you need to be thin by any means possible. Doesn't matter what you do, because the result has to be thinness. And when you're thin, you will get the good things in society, because now you deserve them. And if you're not thin, you're not trying hard enough. And if you get harm and weight stigma, that's your fault. That's diet culture. I don't like diet culture.
Yeah, it's not, that's not fun.
No.
Where would you say, where did this all start? Where would you pinpoint the era that all this began?
There is a book by Dr. Sabrina Strings that she looks at the racial origins of fat phobia, and how it is it's titled "Fearing the Black Body: The Racial Origins of Fat Phobia," and she does some heavy duty research, and you're seeing like this is going all the way back to slavery. It's going all the way back to just how we colonized the United States. It's going all the way back into how we regard food. It goes all the way back into how we other people. I mean, she's bringing up studies from physicians who noted like when women started to pursue a lot of thinness, physicians were saying, this is not good. Why are women restricting and pursuing thinness and actually being this thin? That this is not healthy for them. So there was even a time when that was being questioned as something not healthy, which we know. So it is, there are deep roots in terms of where does diet culture come from. And then when you start to intersect that with capitalism and ways our industrial society began to mass produce products, the way we need to sell, profit, it is a way of like, well, the best way to sell products is to capitalize on human emotions.
And so this, obviously this goes back. So now we're looking at, marketing tactics, advertising tactics from bigger companies then, right, if you will. So then there's this like a domino effect that right, can trace back to consumer influence on. Yes. So then so in terms of your studies and looking at this and then social injustices, how did you marry the two? Did you find commonalities automatically, or was this discovery upon discovery diving deeper into this? And what don't we know in society, the connections between the two?
I will say there are so many activists and folks doing work. And so as I began to delve more into eating disorders, I began to see just all the messages that we get around weight and health. And we live in our Western society really has this weight-centric model in that we equate weight and health. And we say like, and the folks whom I work with like say this all the time: if I'm not thin, I am unhealthy. And we know that is just not true. And in fact, we have so many studies that actually point out how that is not true. So where was I? Where was I going with? That was a big portion of my learning and how I began to marry the two. Is just pointing out like, wow, we live in such a weight-centric society. I also was discovering that it is hard to do my work as an eating disorder psychologist when I'm surrounded by diet culture. I didn't notice it in the beginning. I was just getting frustrated when I would hear folks saying, "Oh, Marcella, you're doing such good work on folks with eating disorders. Those folks really need your help." Like, excuse me now, I'm going to go to the gym because I need to lose 10 pounds. So just having those sentences said, have someone complete a sentence like with that or a thought with that. And so I was noting that like, as I work with folks with eating disorders, first of all, I like what I do. I like working with folks with eating disorders. I feel very honored and very touched when someone trusts me enough to say like, this is my story. This is how I struggle. These are my vulnerabilities. I'm sharing some kind of deep, dark secrets with you and the shame I carry. Like for me, that is a big trust and something I take very seriously. And And I feel like where I get stuck or burnt out is when folks share with me of I can't recover because if I recover, I'll restore weight. And if I restore weight, diet culture now says I'm bad. And even just that kind of language, I notice folks use when talking about their eating disorder, like I'm good or I'm bad. And we know language is so nuanced and all, but when you're in this emotional state, things become very primary. And so it's just like, if I restore weight and recover, I will be rejected from society. And
So,
that's what my burnout is.
yeah. So speaking of those who you work with, who gets an eating disorder? Who falls in that category? Who
Anybody,
all?
anybody. Um, and that's been an uphill battle for me to encourage folks of in healthcare settings and mental health settings, substance abuse centers, asking like, so when you're doing your intake, are you asking questions around eating disorders? And folks share no. I'm like, well, why not? I'm like, but we don't see folks with eating disorders here. And I'm like, that's just not true. And as a result now of not asking those questions, a lot of clinics are now at a place where they're seeing so many folks with eating disorders. My requests for trainings have gone up. And they will continue to go up. And folks realize like, wow, we have a prevalence of folks with eating disorders. I'm like, you've always had those folks. It's just now we can't ignore this. You see what you see. And yes, the pandemic kind of changed things around, but yet I also think like the not addressing folks who have eating disorders, or somehow thinking your clinic, your setting, the population whom you work with, the communities that you work with are immune to eating disorders. I'm like, no, it was only a matter of time.
So when it comes to the I'm curious about your input for, say, if there's a viewer who's watching and they suspect that a loved one, someone that they care about, might have one. Are there any behaviors that sometimes get missed that are not the obvious, that would fall under the things to be on the lookout, things as a loved one to investigate further, to get curious about, to are there things that maybe that we don't know about, generally speaking, that would be good to know?
Yes, I think where we tend to look at for eating disorders, which is obvious, of course it is, when someone is losing a lot of weight. We just then we know. And yes, many chances you are correct. However, there may be other signs. The big one that I share with folks, because sometimes they're trying to focus on like, are they going to the bathroom after every meal? I'm like, okay, yeah, if that comes up, sure. You may catch that. Folks sometimes share like, wow, after spending like 1 to 2 days with someone, I'm noticing how they eat and how they regard food. Oh, yeah. Particularly around the rigidity and lack of flexibility around food and exercise. That's not oh, okay. I think for teens, and this also applies for adults too, of noticing like there's more of a withdrawal and isolation, and folks are kind of pulling away from their lives. I think many times we ask around mood and are you depressed and sad? And while that may be coming up, it is important to ask like, are you taking care of yourself? Are you doing things to yourself that could be harmful? And asking around like, are you eating enough food? Are you purposely not eating? Are you making yourself throw up? Are you, various like, are you taking various pills and all that, or are you exercising a lot? Like just and
Do you
also,
do you find that these questions, the level of honesty that throws the loved one off, or do you find that maybe they're surprised by the honesty in a question like that?
I think it depends. I do think that many folks, there is a cry for help aspect, and so I think folks can share that they are struggling. I think particularly for younger folks, it's a do you care? Are you noting that this is happening for me? It might be overwhelming for someone, and they might say like, I can't answer that, or I won't answer that, or no, everything's fine, everything's fine. That's okay. You know, that is where someone is at. And so it might mean like, all right, I'm gonna like take a step back. It also might mean of I might come back again. We tend to congratulate weight loss a lot, and it's important to like note like, why am I congratulating that?
And this is definitely an area I want to get your input on. First, we're going to take a commercial break, and don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this. Thank you so much for watching The Health Revolution. Our show is growing, and it's all thanks to viewers like you. No matter how you found us, please hit the subscribe button so we can stay connected and continue to deliver amazing content to you.
Life is so fragile, and we're constantly reminded just how fragile life can be, especially when we or a loved one is told we have cancer. Cancer survivor myself, I can tell you, we still feel very alone in this journey.
There's a study that's been shown that patients who are socially isolated have a worse prognosis, have a worse outcome than patients who are socially interconnected.
Buddies for Life is a non-profit cancer support group for those whose life has been impacted by cancer. Humor, hope, heart, and hugs.
Humor, hope, heart, hugs, and a whole lot of love.
Share this with your friends and family and support this community in every way you can. No one should face cancer alone.
I am a chemo buddy for life.
We are a buddies network.
No one does cancer alone.
Be a buddy.
And we are all here for you as a community of love.
We are chemo buddies for life.
And if you've heard 3 words, you have cancer, for yourself or someone else, you belong with us at Chemo Buddies for Life.
Healing through connections.
And now we want to give special thanks to Biomed Mobile IV for sponsoring the Health Revolution. Biomed Mobile IV is Colorado's top mobile IV therapy service, servicing throughout the state of Colorado. They offer an array of vitamins and above and beyond safety preparation. Biomed Mobile IV, your dedication to health and wellness is exactly what our show is all about. And we thank you for your support. Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back, everybody. My guest today, Dr. Marcella Raimondo. We're talking about eating disorders and overcoming them, as we are also touching on how society has impacted in terms of injustices and moving forward, and what does all that look like. And before the break, Dr. Marcella, we were talking about, you did mention something that I thought was very unique, and yet it would beg the splitting of the hairs carefully, that society has a tendency to celebrate weight loss and in a way as a win. How can we carefully distinguish how can we step aside from that and address eating disorders properly, so we're not giving a blanket accolades to, say, losing that the number on the scale is dropping?
Right. It's a big thing, because like we are such a society that focuses on celebrating weight loss. I mean, it is everywhere. Like 2 things. One is like folks have shared who've had eating disorders that they were congratulated for the weight loss, congratulated, and that there's fear of recovery, because it would mean putting the weight back on, even though I call it more like you are restoring your weight from your eating disorder. That's very different. The other thing is that when folks pursue weight loss, or this is the ultimate goal, I want to take a step back and say, like, but what if, we all have differing relationships with food in our body and exercise. Like, what if someone who was, for whatever reason, in their lives, has said, like, I want to make some changes. I want to eat differently. I want to prepare foods more. I want to go to the farmer's market more. I want to take walks with loved ones. I want to have meals together. I want to drink water. I want to meditate. And they did all of this, and their cholesterol improved, their hypertension improved, their heart rate improved. They were more flexible. They were able to bend over and tie a shoelace. They had more energy. They slept better at night, but they didn't lose weight. Like, would you say, like, that was all not worth it? Because that does happen for some folks. Not everyone loses weight by doing all those things. Would you discourage this person to stop? Like, let's say you were teaching an exercise class, would you say, well, then don't come back to my class?
So what are some of your best practices to carefully address it without making a general statement about people in society losing weight, or say someone who is trying to lose weight? I guess what I'm trying to say is the distinguishing between the two, that that you focus on getting to the heart of the disorder and keeping the intentionality on the healing part of that.
Yes. Yeah. So, meaning, are you asking me about how do I think
your favorite approach, theories, the approaching the subject to keep it in the healing basis versus any type of goals that, say, said person thought they should have with their weight or with their health?
I always look at or ask folks to look at quality of life. Like, what is important to you? I ask folks to say, like, what are your values in life? I ask folks to share, like, who are your people? What are your communities? I ask folks about, like, and I also say, like, what is your relationship to your body? Are you and your body aligned? Is that a relationship that needs attention, that needs tenderness? How are we going to have that relationship where you grow with you and your body that doesn't involve weight loss? And so, because sometimes we get messages that try to, like, push us away from diet culture, that say, like, you're more than just your body, and pointing out, like, but you are your body. So this isn't about creating disconnection from you and your body. It is about, like, what do we need to do to have more connection with you and your body? And I think that brings up the social justice about, are you getting the medical attention you need? What kind of services are you getting? Are you able to access healthcare and services? When you access and go, how are you treated? Are you looked at as a whole person, or is this focus on your weight? Are you misgendered? Is there some assumptions made around who you are, that you couldn't possibly be struggling with food? So it's also looking at those experiences.
So before we go, we have a quick break coming up. But before we go, how would you encourage somebody to increase their usage of their voice to then articulate these and addressing these needs? What's a good, I hate to say a hack, but what is a tool that they can use to start, utilizing their voice more?
I would ask folks, one, to be very curious. Also, like I'm learning from a lot of folks, and start doing some journaling, and even start saying, like, what are the things you say to yourself about food and your body? Say them out loud. What is it like to hear that? Now, how would you like to bring in some tenderness with that? Folks often share that I am very pro body positive and everyone else around me except me. I get that all the time. And so hearing like, okay, say these things out loud, look at them. Now, what would it be like to shift that for yourself? Or imagine your friend saying that. What would you say to your friend who says that? And it brings up a lot of feelings with folks of like, I'm not lovable, I'm not good enough. Those are the two things I hear. And so I often share with folks, like, doing this work is deep and it's going to be painful and you might feel worse before you feel better. But the investment into having a connection where you and your body align and you and your body call, maybe for right now, you're just calling some type of truce. And like, I'm not going to, the body hatred that I have, I'm just going to call some kind of truce right now. We're just not going to do this. I even tell folks, is there something you say? Like, is there a word you use? Can you just change one word in your vocabulary?
I do like that. We're going to have to take a quick break. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back after this.
Hi, this is Clara Capano, your host for Women Winning Their Way, where we talk about how you can create success all on your terms. Join us Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Limelight Network here on E360 TV.
Welcome back to the Health Revolution. Welcome back to the show. My guest today, Dr. Marcella Raimondo. We are talking about overcoming eating disorders and also the impact it has on social injustices and moving beyond that to really optimize life. And I know we're running out of time, but Dr. Marcella, you mentioned that these were some of the, before we went to break, you were talking about tools to just help elevate the voice. And I do like how you were emphasizing just practicing using your voice so that way, you know, that this becomes much more natural to, and what I'm getting at it is the drawing the lines in the sand, right, to then honor space and honor space for growth. Would you say?
Yes.
Yes. So real quickly, where can our audience find you out there in social media, on the internet? Where are you out there?
I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I am on LinkedIn. I also have my website, www.marcellaedtraining.com. And so if you are in a clinic or a health setting, you're like, I want to bring Marcella to talk about this. Absolutely. If you are in the state of California and you're like, wow, I've had this relationship with food and my body, I would like to do some work. I am accepting clients. So there are numerous ways to get a hold of me.
And I do want to bring up, you do have a specific website link for eating disorder trainings.
Yes.
And so can you speak real quickly about that, like this segment of your services?
Yes, I I give trainings to health clinics and various mental health settings. Also, if you are looking for, like, I am pulling a community of folks together, and I would love for someone to talk about our relationship with food and our bodies. I do a lot of speaking at conferences and big gatherings as a keynote, as well as just various other workshops that I lead.
And you are speaking at conferences this year. I know you have conference speaking, so obviously that you are versed in this area, and any group would be incredibly happy to have you, of course. And Dr. Marcella Raimondo, thank you so much for joining us today. I appreciate your time, your energy, and the valuable information that you're sharing with us.
Oh, thank you so much. It was so great to be with you, and just for us to go back and forth. I absolutely love it. Those are my favorite kinds of podcasts to be on. And so this was great.
Absolutely. And so for our viewers, of course, you can find us on the web at thehealthrevolutiontv.com. You can subscribe to our newsletter. If you can also email us if you have any show topics that you'd love for us to cover, which we would be happily to deliver. And of course, upper left-hand corner of your screen, you're going to see a QR code as the crow flies. That'll bring you straight to our website if that's easier for you. And then, as always, you can find us on E360 TV Tuesdays and Thursdays, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We are on the Achieve TV channel. That is all the time that we have. Until next time, take care of yourselves. We will see you soon.